Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. So we are back once again with the Shizu Tearlaments, playing the exact same list that I did for my initial deck profile. Indeed, these next games that we're going to see in this video are really a continuation of that play session. I continued playing after I actually recorded and edited that video just to make sure I got that done as quickly as I could. But when I continued to play after that, I managed to hit Diamond 1. I say managed as if, you know, I wasn't playing like the best deck in the meta to do so. I think it's really more that I managed to climb through Diamond and all the mirror matches that entailed, and somehow managed to come out on Diamond, Diamond 1, despite not really having played this deck before today. It's actually still the same day that they initially came out that I'm recording this. They've been on Master Duel for just under 12 hours at this point. So, yeah, went from Diamond 4 to Diamond 1. Diamond 4 is where I stopped my climb before the Tearlaments came out. I am honestly loving this mirror match. I know a lot of people are not particularly jazzed about this meta. A lot of people don't really like Tier 0 metas, and in the interest of diversity, then yeah, I might not be that quote-unquote not great of a meta. However, I think when it comes to skillfulness, the Tearlament matchup, I mean, this is something that I've heard people say forever now, but now having experienced it myself, there is an unquestionably large amount of skill that goes into a Tearlament mirror match. Just like, honestly, just keeping track of everything. Keeping track of everything, not only that you have, but that your opponent has, and the other thing too is that, like, it's so situationally dependent, right? Like, what the right move ends up being. I want to make some kind of a guide for this deck, but honestly, right now, I'm kind of... whoops, sorry, that's an alarm going off there. That's my fault. But yeah, right now, I'm kind of, like, struggling to figure out how I want to structure a guide like that. It definitely wouldn't be a traditional combo guide, right? Because this deck doesn't have traditional combos. A lot of times, it not only matters what you mill, but the decisions that you make are going to depend on what your opponent's doing, whether or not they have disruption, like so on and so forth. Even knowing how many cards are in your opponent's deck is just so crucial. So yeah, this is kind of a difficult deck to get the hang of without just like jumping into it. And I honestly think when it comes to this deck in particular, that is the best way to do it. I mean, for me personally, I've always learned best by doing as opposed to just like watching. Not that watching and researching doesn't help, but I don't really feel comfortable playing a deck. Like, I can goldfish it all I want and practice, like, with friends, but honestly, once I really get into the ranked ladder and really start getting into it, that's when I feel like I get comfortable with a deck. So, I'm at the point now where I'm starting to feel like, alright, I feel like I kind of know what's going on with the Shizu Tearlaments, but I imagine I very much still have a long way to go in terms of perfecting this mirror match here. As far as this build goes, yeah, this is, like I said, the same build I've been using all day. It's the same build that was on my deck profile, card for card. Haven't changed it yet. And I've honestly been loving it. I really, really like this build. I guess since we already spent the deck profile talking about what's in this current iteration, let's talk about some of the cards that aren't in here. There's King of the Swamp. Let me go ahead and pull that up. You've probably seen people playing this. I should probably search more than just King, huh? I've seen people playing this, and you probably have too. Yeah, here we go, King of the Swamp. This is not, like, the worst card to play. It does let you fuse for stuff a little more easily. Like, you can make Rulkallos without actually having to have Kitkallos engraved, because this can actually just be used as a fusion material substitute for Kitkallos. And it can potentially allow you to make stuff like Mud Dragon, if you're playing that in your extra deck. With the Reinoheart there, because they're both water, but they're different types. Honestly, though, I don't really think it's that great. It's really not usually a problem if... It's not really a matter of not having enough stuff to fuse with engrave. It's more that, like, you want to be actually hitting your fusers when you're milling them. So, King of the Swamp became necessary once Kitkallos got banned, because that was the only way then to summon Rulkallos, but with Kitkallos still around, I don't think King of the Swamp is needed. Same with, like, just straight up vanilla polymerization. I've seen some of the builds playing King of the Swamp also playing polymerization. Not bad, but not terrible. Speaking of polymerization, let's talk about super polymerization. Where is it? here it is. I used to be able to find it just by the semi-limited symbol, but of course this card is no longer semi-limited. It's at 3, so why aren't I playing it? Well, I don't really like Super Poly at all in Master Duel Tearlaments for a couple of reasons. One is that we don't have good targets for it, like at all. It's mainly the Garura, right? Garura is a TCG exclusive fusion monster whose fusion materials are simply 2 monsters with the same type and attribute but different names. So between that and Mud Dragon, yeah, you can Super Poly just about anything. But honestly, it's just, I don't know, it's not really, without that, you know, without the ability to fuse into Garura, Super Poly just becomes a much more situational board breaker. It's not even really good against the mirror match. You might think like, oh, well, you can Super Poly in the mirror match, and that's great, right? It's actually not, because more often than not, your opponent's going to be ending on Rulkallos and or Kaliedo-Heart. Kaliedo-Heart can't be used as a fusion material, so it's immune to Super Poly. Rulkallos can be used as a fusion material, but then it just brings itself right back anyway. So like it literally doesn't do anything at all to the Tearlament boss monsters. If you don't want to play or don't have triple tactics talent, that's what I'm playing in my like 3 kind of open tech slots right now. Well, 3 of, I should say, my open tech slots. If you don't want to play the triple tactics talent, I still don't think you should play Super Poly. I would recommend Droplet next, but I also don't think Droplet is particularly exceptional in this deck as well. It's not bad by any means. That's the thing, honestly. A lot of these techs that I'm talking about that I'm not playing, they're not bad cards. I just think there are much better options. Those options, in my opinion, are, as I mentioned before, triple tactics talent, and then Infinite Impermanence. I know a lot of people are saying that, like, oh, hand traps are dead against Tears, they don't do anything. That actually is true for the most part. Like, you'll notice I'm not running Ash Blossoms, I'm not running Nibiru, I'm not running Called By, because those don't do enough, right? Like, the Nibiru, again, if you drop Nibiru and send, like, Rulkallos or Kaliedo-Heart, they just bring themselves back with their effects. That doesn't actually do anything. I think so, right? Because, yeah, they're sent by a card effect, even if they're attributed. I'm pretty sure that's how that works, but Ash Blossom doesn't really do enough to stop this deck either. You know, being able to shut off 1 mill or 1 search isn't that great. So you might be wondering, well, okay, then what's Imperm in here for if Ash Blossom isn't that great? Imperm on Kitkallos is definitely much better than Ash Blossom because the Imperm actually allows you to shut down all of Kitkallos' effects for the entire turn. So they won't be able to just sack it and then mill 5. You could also accomplish the same thing with Effect Veiler. The problem with Effect Veiler is that, well, it triggers triple tactics talent, so I think Imperm ends up being the better option. Imperm is also definitely more flexible than Veiler a lot of the time, since Veiler can, of course, only be used during your opponent's main phase there. And, yeah, let's see, what else have I seen? I'm trying to think of other things I've seen people play that I'm just not into at all. Oh, the Salvation, the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. I think I talked about that during my deck profile, but yeah, I'm not on that engine at all. I'm not up on it at all. Honestly, I think that engine is just shit. I really do. I do not think much of the Rainbow Salvation engine at all. Now, I could be wrong about it, and I'm open to the idea of being wrong, but my interpretation of it, and I think I might have already mentioned this again, but I'll say it again in case I haven't. My interpretation of it is, yes, the Primeval Planet Perlerino is an extremely good card. It's a very, very good card. It's not so good that I'm going to add bricks to a deck that doesn't already have them, right? Like, I've seen so many pictures today in less than 12 hours of people lamenting, like, they'll post screenshots of the opening hands that has Crystal Beast Emerald Tortoise in it, and every time I see that, I just think to myself, like, wow, that was really preventable. You could have just not put those, frankly, awful cards in your deck. I don't know, it's like, usually I try to be open-minded this early into a deck releasing about certain packages, but I don't get it. I really don't understand the appeal behind Rainbow Bridge of Salvation at all. I really think it's absolute shit, but again, if I'm wrong, and I'm open to being wrong, but I don't think I am. Alright, so yeah, I think that's about everything I really can say about the deck. Well, there's a lot to say about this deck, but I think a lot of it's going to be much better illustrated in some gameplay. So let's move on to that, right after we break this list down card by card. So, again, this is the list that ended up getting me to Diamond 1 from Diamond 4 today, the day that Tearlaments released. So, we are on 1 Herald of Orange Light, 3 Maxx, 1 Diviner of the Herald, 2 Tearlaments Merrli, 2 Tearlaments Havnis, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 2 Tearlaments Scheiren, I always call it Sheeran, like Ed Sheeran, 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart, 2 Keldo, the Sacred Protector, 3 Mudora, the Sword Oracle, 2 Kelbek, the Ancient Vanguard, 2 Agido, the Ancient Sentinel, 1 Terraforming, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Foolish Burial Goods, 3 Triple Tactics Talent, 1 Primeval Planet's Perlerino, 3 Tearlaments Scream, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 1 Tearlaments Cryme, and then 2 Tearlaments Sulliek. Boom, there's our main deck. Now for our extra deck, we're playing 1 Elder Entity Natis, 1 Tearlaments Kitkallos, 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia, we got 1 Tearlaments Rulkallos, 1 Tearlaments Kaliedo-Heart, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 number 41 Bagooska, the terribly tired Tapir, excuse me. We have a Time Thief Redoer, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Aussa the Earth Charmer Immovable, 1 Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Sprite Elf, and then 1 Mechanite Crusadia Avermax. Boom, there's our list. Let's look at some games. Okay, let's start this video off. Let's start off with a Tearlaments mirror match here. And we'll see if we have any interesting talking or decision points to take a look at. Looks like our opponent's going to be taking the first turn. We open an orange Herald with a Mudora. That's actually really, really good. Not only can we, of course, negate and destroy a monster effect, but we can put a Shuffler in the grave. We also open the Havnis as well. So, yeah, as far as going second hands go, there's not a whole lot better you could ask for than this. Opponent's going to Perlerino. And what do they search for? They add a... Okay, I didn't think it was the Reinoheart. They add a Scheiren, which is probably the next best thing to add after Reinoheart if you already have that in hand. And then, of course, they're going to activate Scream before summoning the Reinoheart. Let's see, Scream is going to mill an Agido. And then, of course, they mill the Havnis with the Reinoheart. And now here they activate Agido's effect. I think that was a huge misplay on my opponent's part. If you look at their board state, they can already go Kitkallos, search Merrli, and then use Kitkallos effect, sack itself, summon Merrli, mill 8. So that alone, plus they have a Scheiren in hand too already, that alone should be enough to set them up for the entire turn. I don't know what else they thought they were going to get by activating Agido, but they're not going to really advance their own board state any more by doing that than they already could. What they will do is provide me with the opportunity to make a comeback play, you know, with just by using the stuff that I end up milling. So, yeah, I definitely do not think at all my opponent should have activated Agido there. As you can see, this is already a disaster for my opponent, because now I get to mill 10. And I don't really care about milling my opponent 10. Again, they already are set up to use all their effects this turn anyway. I definitely care more about me milling 10. Plus, if we look at our opponent's graveyard here, 1, they didn't mill anything significant at all. 2, like, they're just playing a bunch of suboptimal cards here, in my opinion. Polymerization, Vanilla Poly, not needed at all. Tearlaments Grief, I actually don't blame people for playing this card, because this reads like it's insane. And like I said before, a lot of other decks would love a card that has this text, but for their archetype. Tearlaments don't need it, though. And then Herald of Greenlight, it's like, Tearlaments don't really play spells that much. I don't know what you're... I don't know. I don't really know why the Herald of Greenlight is in there at all, to be honest, but... Okay, here comes Kitkallos. And then, of course, they get this Sulliek effect. And then they also triggered their Perlerino's effect on their own Scream. I mean, I guess I get to search, which is fine, but I think Scream is a lot more threatening to have on the board, because now, while Scream is in play, if I summon while they have a Tearlaments monster, they get to mill 3, and that could potentially, like, get them a really powerful play on my turn. This I at least understand. Like, I understand the thought process between popping a Scream to search your own crime, and it might actually be the case that maybe it is actually right for them to do that here, but I can't really see how that is, honestly. I don't know. I just, again, I think it's another kind of odd play for my opponent. This one's not terrible, though. This one I can at least see and might not even be, like, a bad play. But yeah, I'm definitely going to mill 10 here. Oh, milling Shufflers. Beautiful. We love to see it. Do we mill any Shufflers on our opponent's side? Nope. Even better. So, yeah, this is great. This is definitely looking really good for us. Now they're going to try to get the Scheiren effect, but I, of course, have my Shufflers. I'm going to proc my own Scheiren as well as my Reinoheart. And I actually think I misclicked here and didn't actually click one of my Shufflers. So, yeah, I know, that was actually a minor misplay on my part. That was a misclick. I accidentally right-clicked instead of left-clicked on the the Keldo slash Mudora, but I definitely should have done that in order to put back their Scheiren. So minor misplay on my part as well. It's actually not going to end up mattering though. Alright, so now I think this is me making my Kitkallos. Yep. And then now they do get their Scheiren effect. They're going for, it looks like their Kaliedo-Heart here. And not Rulkallos, which I also think was another misplay. I think they should summon Rulkallos first and then Kaliedo-Heart. I think that would have been the better call. I'm going to try to put my Kitkallos back, but my Havnis is already on the chain link, so I just get to fuse with it. They're going to chain their Havnis effect, but I don't care. Like, they've already, like I said, they've already used, like, all of their effects that really matter, so I don't care if they mill another 3. That's completely fine. So yep, now I'm fusing for Rulkallos, and keep in mind this does target, so they targeted that Kitkallos that's now no longer on the field, and now I have a Rulkallos. And then they're going to keep milling with the King of the Swamp? I don't get it. I really don't understand. This is definitely somebody who's just like, you know, clicking yes on the mill effects and not thinking about it, which you definitely need to be, so they're going to activate their Reinoheart's effect. That's fine. I don't care. Because I'm just going to shuffle it back. And then I get my Merrli and my Sulliek as well. Also, look at this. I haven't even used my Havnis or Orange Herald. I don't need them. I don't need them right now. It's insane. Now I'm going to make my Kaliedo-Heart. And again, this is my opponent's first turn. And I'm going to use my Kaliedo-Heart to put back theirs. They get to activate Mudora's effect to put back another Mudora. That's perfectly fine with me. Same with them, you know, activating their Mudora. Also fine. Or not fine. I guess I will just go ahead and Orange Herald. That's right, because I think this was the last Shuffler in their graveyard, if I recall correctly. Yes, they are out of Shufflers. So I'll use Herald of Orange Light to negate theirs so I can keep my Shufflers in the yard. And I'm going to let them do Kitkallos' effect. Although, you know, I should say, let me look at their graveyard real quick. They didn't have those 5. I probably should just chain a Shuffler and put back all of their Tearlaments monsters so they couldn't summon off that. They wouldn't be able to resolve the Kitkallos effect, but it doesn't even matter if they do, honestly. Now my opponent's just going to go into a Bagooska to kind of force me to stall and then pass. So I think that is kind of a prime example of what not to do if you're playing Tearlaments. Like I said, there was no reason for my opponent to use their Agido. And if my opponent had not used their Agido, yes, I still would have had like my Havnis and my Orange Herald plus Mudora, but I would be a lot more limited in my responses here. My opponent's board would look a lot better, and my board would be definitely not Rulkallos plus Kaliedo-Heart. I mean, look at this. I ended a better board on my opponent's first turn than they did. It's kind of ridiculous. There is the matter of this Bagooska, though. We're going to have to end up trying to play around this. I'm going to start by specialing this Scheiren, and that will proc the Havnis effect. I'm going to use this in order to fusion summon a Kitkallos, but of course I don't really get to use Kitkallos' effects here. I'm mainly just doing this fusion summon in order to put another Link material on the field, honestly. Because that's, of course, how I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this Bagooska here, is by Link summoning. I'm going to go for Dark the Dark Charm or Gloomy, and try to activate the effect to bring back their Scheiren. They've got a Tearlaments Sulliek, which is perfectly fine with me. I don't really care. They do get to proc the Havnis effect to fuse, but I have more than enough Shufflers in my yard, so there was no way they were ever gonna, you know, be able to do that, like, successfully. Gonna put my Kitkallos back as well as their Exchange of the Spirit. And they do get to pop Rulkallos with the Planet, but of course they get to just bring it right back anyway. Alright, now here I'm going to use Fairy Tale. I'm going to summon Fairy Tale Snow, and I'm actually going to use my Kaliedo-Heart as a link material here in order to summon IP Masquerena. Now I get to use IP plus Dark to go into Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. Now, because this can't go into defense mode, the Bagooska can't turn into defense mode, of course, as any link monster, so I'll run over there Bagooska, and then pass back over to my opponent. They're going to fire off their Mudora to get rid of my Keldo out of the yard, so I don't think I have any more Shufflers. Oh no, I have another Keldo here. They really should have put that back on, actually. I don't know why they didn't, unless they just missed it, but I've got a Keldo, I've got a Fairy Tale Snow, I've got a Rulkallos, and I've got a Cryme. I have so much disruption for my opponent's low resources. And also, my opponent still has to out an Avermax with an IEP under it, so that's actually not something that Tearlaments can do very easily. They often have to play something in their extra deck specifically to do it. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and use my Keldo in response to this Merrli, putting back everything good that they milled, including their Shuffler, as well as their exchange of the Spirit. And then, yeah, I mean, they get to put 5 back because they have an exchange of the Spirit in their graveyard, but I'm just shrugging right now because I'm like, who cares? Who cares? I still have a Cryme, I still have a Rulkallos, I still have this Avermax. Ooh, excuse me, I still have that burp. And yeah, like I said, I mean, my opponent can negate me all they want here, but they're running themselves so low on resources. Now, they do get a Scheiren fusion here, but I was going to say, yeah, what are they going to do? Go for Rulkallos? Like, they still have no means at all of outing this Avermax, and they might have conceded because they might not have a way, period, to out Avermax, but regardless if they do or don't, like, they can summon Rulkallos and run over mine, but the one summon negation isn't going to be enough to really stop me from making plays, and besides that, I do still have, as I mentioned, of course, the Avermax. Oh, right. They didn't concede. This was a time limit win. Ah, well, that kind of explains it. But yeah, like I said, my opponent still was not in a position to come back, honestly, at all. So yeah, there's a Tearlaments mirror match. Definitely hope you learned something from that. We still have some more games to jump into, so let's go straight to those. All right, next game here is going to be against Exo Sisters. Ooh, one of the decks that's supposed to counter Tear is really hard. In theory, yes, but in practice, it actually doesn't really end up playing that way terribly often. Aside from the amazing opening hand I have here, the reason it tends not to work out too often is because, well, honestly, just because of one going second in general, right? Like, unless you open Dimension Shifter, you as the Exo Sister are still as vulnerable going second as any other deck is to Tearlaments. Alright, so the Effect Veiler is going to negate my Kitkallos here, which will actually stop it for the entire turn. And if I didn't have any other gas in my hand, it would actually be a pretty solid move on its own. But here I, of course, have a lot more gas, and especially the Agido. I actually put this on board to possibly make an Abyss Dweller, was my thought process until, of course, I used Triple Attack and saw my opponent's hand. So here, of course, I'm putting back Martha. This is far and away the best card in my opponent's hand. The Stellas are whatever. And the Returnia, also, honestly, whatever. So, putting back that Martha. I know they don't have any hand traps now, so I can kind of go wild here. I'm going to use the Scheiren, pitching the Merrli, and then milling 3. I get to do Merrli's effect. Let's see, we milled a Reinoheart as well, so that's nice. But I'm going to make Rulkallos with the Kitkallos first. Now I'm going to overlay these two, not for Abyss Dweller, but actually for Time Thief Redoer. Gonna make some good use of this Time Thief Redoer coming up on my opponent's turn here. So during their standby phase, you get to attach the top card, which actually ends up being an Exo Sister Vadis, which is a trap card. That's very, very good because the Redoer can actually put a card on top of the deck by detaching a trap card. The main reason I summoned Redoer, my opponent conceded already, but I'll talk about this real quick anyway. The main reason to summon Redoer here is that way during my opponent's turn, I can detach the Scheiren. Basically, what I'm going to do is during my opponent's turn, the idea is that we use our Time Thief Redoer's effect in order to detach the Scheiren and then the trap card as soon as our opponent plays a monster that will not only put their Exo Sister monster back on top of their deck, but also Scheiren is actually going to proc because Time Thief Redoer detaches as part of its effect, not as part of the cost. Therefore, Scheiren is sent to the graveyard by the effect of a card. Therefore, I get to fusion summon. So that would have been a nice way to cheat out some plays during my opponent's turn as well. But they end up conceding, like I said, before that end up being relevant. So we still have a couple more games to look at. Let's go straight into the next one. All right, this game is going to be against Blind Going Second 8-Axis. We've all seen the deck at some point or another. It's that Danger Kaiju deck that, again, just always goes second. So, no surprise we're taking the first turn here. Got a pretty solid opening hand. Actually, very, very good. I'm going to start, before actually even summoning Reinoheart, I'm going to start with Scheiren, pitching the Mudora. I actually like to get my shufflers in the graveyard literally as early as possible. So, in this case, I'll start with the Scheiren, as I mentioned. Didn't mill a Tearlaments monster, where he did mill a couple of crimes, so I get to, or a couple of screams, rather, so I get to search a crime. And then my opponent is going to use Effect Veiler on the Reinoheart. Oh no, now I can't send the Havnis and start fusing. whatever am I supposed to do? Well, we can actually keep fusing here. I'm going to overlay for the Time Thief Redoer, like we talked about that last game there. I'm going to activate the effect, detaching the Scheiren. Now, it's weird because they all left the field at once during the replay, but this actually super duper matters when you're going to activate the effect. If you want to get the Scheiren effect for Time Thief Redoer, you have to specifically detach Scheiren as a material. If you don't, then the material will go to the graveyard while it's still attached to Time Thief Redoer. This is considered being sent to the graveyard not by the effect of a card, but due to a game mechanic. Basically, if I had detached Reinoheart, then I wouldn't get the activation because Scheiren was sent to the graveyard because Time Thief Redoer was banished, therefore by game mechanic. But because I detached specifically Scheiren, it was sent by Redoer's effect, not by a game mechanic, so now I get to use it. And indeed, I will end up using that to fuse for a Kitkallos to get my play started. So that's one of, there's actually the last two games you've seen, two different reasons why the, the Time Thief Redoer, I just said it, I can't believe I forgot it. The Time Thief Redoer is so good. So, yeah, the opponent's got the Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill here. In order to negate the effects of my Kitkallos for the turn. That is going to stop me here, so I'll set Cryme and pass, getting back the Redoer during the end of phase there. Going to fire off a Maxi during the drop phase, just in case they're a deck that plays Triple Tactics Talent. They do have an Ash Blossom for it, though. Standby phase, Time Thief Redoer is going to steal the top card of their deck. It just ends up being a monster, but the fact that it's a it's a Maxi, so it doesn't give me any information. This, however, does. The Alpha followed up by the Danger Bigfoot. So I'm going to show you the Tearlaments Cryme on the Bigfoot effect here, because I definitely don't want my opponent to have two level 8 monsters on the board. Also, they're going to bounce with Alpha, and I'm going to chain the Time Thief Redoer. This is going to leave me with 0 monsters on my board, so my opponent is not going to be able to special the Alpha again. They have Danger Thunderbird as their last card, and unfortunately for me, they actually discard their Alpha, so they do get to summon it and then draw. But that's all she wrote before they're just going to battle and then pass. Now, I am in top deck mode here, but thankfully I top decked like literally the best possible single card you could top deck, which is the Primal Planet Perlerino. So I'm going to use that to go ahead and search up my Tearlaments Reinoheart, and that's enough for my opponent to just concede from there. Yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory from there with some of the Reinoheart. Reinoheart's going to send Havnis and Reinoheart fuse. I think Kitkallos already in the grave. We can just go for Rulkallos or Kaliedo-Heart at that point. It's not game that turn, but our opponent's far enough behind, and plus we'll have so many disruptive resources on board that it's pretty much going to be game. It's pretty much going to be game. But we do still have one more duel to watch. Let's go straight into it. And the final duel for this video. This was also the duel that got me from Diamond 2 to Diamond 1, by the way. It's going to be against Ancient Warriors, which is teched out against Tearlaments. They're playing Dimensional Fissure, Soul Drain, so on and so forth. But unfortunately for them, we can take the first turn, so it's not really going to do them a whole lot of good now, is it? Alright, here I'm going to start with the Foolish Burial Goods to send the Sulliek. Use Sulliek's effect to add the Scheiren. If I didn't have the Reinoheart in hand, I'd probably just go ahead and add that. But here I get to use the Scheiren in order to send the Mudora. I also sent Keldo and Merrli and another Reinoheart, so probably the best 3 cards, period, I could have sent off of the Scheiren there. Very, very nice. Gonna summon the Kitkallos now, search up a Merrli, use her effect to send herself, and then activate Merrli's effect to mill a total of 8 cards, which should let me do pretty much whatever I want moving forward from here. Now, as you can see, I didn't mill any Tearlament names, but I did actually mill both my Kelbeks. Despite that, I did not activate their effects. I did that even though I have both of my Shufflers in the graveyard, and the reason is because, well, I can just normal summon Reinoheart to keep fusing. I've talked about this before, but again, if you don't absolutely need to use your Miller's effect, don't do it. You'll only be helping your opponent out. Now here, my opponent's on Ancient Warriors, they're not on the Mirror Match, but obviously I don't have that information at this point. So, yeah, I'm just playing it safe here and not proccing either of my Kelbeks. Instead, like I said, I'm just going to normal the Reinoheart, use that effect to send Havnis. I'll use Havnis and the Kitkallos in order to make the Rulkallos. And now I get to overlay the Scheiren and the Reinoheart. in order to make Time Thief Redoer. Now I can use Time Thief Redoer, detach the Scheiren, and summon Kaliedo-Heart that way. And there we go. We have Kaliedo-Heart and Rulkallos, as well as a Sulliek and an extra Time Thief Redoer for our first turn. Beautiful. We love to see it. And we even got to detach a trap card from our opponent's deck with Time Thief Redoer, which again is insanely busted, as that allows Time Thief Redoer to then act as a piece of disruption. So, love to see it. The opponent's going to start with a Pot of Extravagance to draw 2, following it up with a couple of Ancient Warriors spells. First, the Deception, whatever. Basically the one that summons from hand, and then the one that searches from deck. But yeah, what I'm going to just end up doing here is using Rulkallos' effect in order to negate the summon effect of the Ancient Warriors Saga here. Now I get to bring back my Rulkallos, and then also send a Havnis from deck to grave in order to do even more fusion summoning. The reason I'm doing it this way is because this will not only let me get rid of the other continuous spell, but now I get to fuse away the Rulkallos, which has already been used this turn, and summon another form of disruption in the form of Dragostapelia. So, yeah, that kind of showcases the power of Tearlaments playing on your opponent's turn right after your first turn with your boss monsters. Is now we are using our boss monsters as disruption, and then after that using them as materials for even more disruption. Very strong. Opponent's got another Ancient Warriors Saga here. I'm not really concerned about that. They get to special summon this one that destroys cards, but I'm just going to use Dragostapelia to go ahead and negate that effect. Alright, here they're going to move to the battle phase, trying to battle over Redoer, but I can just use Redoer's effect to put this monster on top of their deck to save my, my monster. And they do have another level 4 to summon. This would allow them to get a special summon Ancient Warriors from their deck, but I'm going to use Sulliek, sending my Time Thief Redoer just to go ahead and negate that. Definitely don't want to send the Kaliedo-Heart because we've already sent it this turn. So that's going to effectively grind my opponent out of resources. They've only got one card left face down on their field before passing back to me. Now, Orange Herald doesn't really facilitate any plays, but I don't really need to facilitate plays here, to be totally honest. I have two monster disruptions in the form of Dragostapelia and Sulliek can even be used to send Kaliedo-Heart to then send an Aqua monster from deck to graveyard to potentially fuse some more. And then, yeah, at that point, that's going to be all for our opponent. They concede, giving us the win. And like I said, that was actually the game that ended up pushing us into Diamond 1. So, there you go. There is the rest of our Diamond climb with Agido Tearlaments there. Hopefully you learned something about the deck from this video. I definitely plan to post a lot more footage of this deck, of course, moving forward. So, plenty of opportunities to learn how to play both with and against this deck. But that's all for today. So let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.